Welcome to the Fanatical Elfz Show, part of the L Network. We are a bunch of wild and crazy Cleveland Browns fans, bringing you all the latest in Browns news. Tune in now. Well, hey, and welcome to another Thursday night edition of the Fanatical Elfz. We're a bunch of wild and crazy folks, and we got Steve, we have Jarrell, and we have Noah in-house. Welcome, guys. How is everybody doing on this Thursday night? It's weather-wise, I think Noah and I were talking about this a little rough out there in spots. I'm down in Columbus. You're up there in Cleveland. Jarrell, you and Steve are actually down in Nashville.
Oh, yeah. Heavy stuff coming in overnight.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you, we've had a busy week here. First week of the free agency window, and the Browns have been active. The biggest news of the week is the backup quarterback position. The Browns went with Jameis Winston, and there's been a lot of build up to this point with what the Browns would do with the backup position behind Deshaun. And they, Joe Flacco had this miraculous, magical moment in time for the Brownies, and they did not go with him. Instead, they went with Jameis Winston, and Flacco now is in Indianapolis Colt. And I wanted to kind of get your perspective. Steve, we'll start with you and go around. And what do you think about the whole? And you and I talked about this a little bit, I think, on Tuesday when we did a brief show.
Well, they met with his agent at the combine. They went over things. No financials were discussed, of course, because that would be inappropriate. But they went with Jameis Winston, who's more of a scheme fit. I mean, I get why everybody's all up in arms about this. Sure, we had a magical season. Yeah, but my experience, every time we have a magical season, the next year ends in bitter disappointment. I mean, look at 1980, 1994, 2000, even 2020.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Flacco served his purpose. They're doing a complete new scheme fit. If you haven't noticed, they've been hiring a bunch of young coaches.
Yeah.
Very young coaches, which I love. And you've heard me say this before, John. I thought the offense was getting stale. I said it last year. So let's freshen it up a little bit. I mean, Flacco was Flacco, 40-year-old guy. You signed somebody 9 years younger.
Yeah.
His last time he had a starting role was 2021. He started 7 games, went 5-2, threw for about 60%, threw for 1,174 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So, okay, I'm good with that. I mean, the last time I looked, Joe Flacco was throwing 2 pick sixes. Last time a guy did that in an important game, the media up there was packing his bags. It was Christmas Day, and he threw 4 interceptions. How'd that work out? I mean, I don't get how the local media gets all their panties in a wad about this thing, and it just drives them insane. Yes. I mean, Tony Grossi is like the guy screaming out his front door, "Get off of my lawn!" I mean,
it's
down.
Interesting take. Noah, you're up there on the East Bank. What Tony Grossi, all those folks? What do you think just about Flacco and now having Jameis Winston?
I mean, listen, I think we all can be in agreement here that the Joe Flacco, the 6 games, even though the playoff game didn't end how the 4 of us wanted to, the memory of the Joe Flacco end of the season is always going to be a great one, right? That being said, to Steve, what he just said, Jameis Winston makes way more sense being the backup quarterback of the Cleveland Browns going into the 2024 season. They both got the same contract, yet one guy is, what did you say, 9 years younger, 8 years younger?
Yes.
9 years. Winston is 9 years younger.
Similar issues, but I mean, at the same, they both have turnover problems, right? but he's 9 years younger, and he's going to play behind Deshaun Watson. And if you're in NFL front office, your goal is to never have that backup in. You get a good one in case he has to, but your goal is to never have that guy play. So all the being up in arms about a backup quarterback to me feels very Cleveland Browns fan right now. We're bored. We're in the off season. We're bored. We're talking about it on our podcast right now. You know what I mean?
We're 6 months removed from the season. Yes.
Right.
Well, Jarrell, what do you think of everything that's happened this last week? Are you disappointed? Are you missing Flacco already?
No, because I think to bounce off what Noah said, and Flacco did his thing, and I think that should definitely be held in high regard. But I think going into the next season, I understand why they made the move, because like Noah said, you're not even thinking that Watson's not going to start for all 17 games. But even to add to that, you want the quarterback to feel like if he makes a couple of mistakes, people aren't going to be chanting for the backup, right? So if you remember like the Baltimore game, when they were at Baltimore, he threw the pick 6 early in the game. And he was kind of shaky in the first half, but then he came back, went 14 for 14, and ultimately, brought them the win. So I know down here in Tennessee, and Steve, you might remember this, when Vince Young was the quarterback, there was a year there where when Vince Young made a mistake, the fans were all over him. And it messed with his confidence to the point where one game he didn't go back in the game. And his time here was never the same. So I think there's something to be said about allowing Deshaun Watson to play free and not have to worry about making mistakes. Because he might have a game where he throws 3 picks, but you don't want that to rattle his confidence.
Jarrell, that's been a real topic of conversation this week amongst Browns fans, what you've just kind of hit on. And I really wonder, I speculate how much is really that is that really the case? I mean, you see, I believe you, like Jarrell. I think, like, I've been in that stadium. I've watched enough games in sports bars, and we love, something goes south. It's like, okay, bring in the backup. Who's the backup? I mean, we even, I go back 10 years ago with, the Brian Hoyer, Johnny Manziel. I was the idiot too, who was clamoring for Johnny to come in. And
I knew exactly what he was.
I knew what you. Steve, that's why you're steady Eddie, man. You get it, but I'm the more irrational guy here. Who a lot of us crazy Browns fans are that way, and I don't know. It is one of those things. Well, and I said on my podcast last night that Flacco's now in Indy. So if you are a Flacco fan and you still had the Flacco jersey you bought here in Cleveland, you can take a trip down I-70 and go watch Flacco, since you love the guy so much. But no, I will miss that magic. I'll miss that. It was a great ride, but like we've all said, he threw back-to-back pick 6s in the most crucial game of the season. Could not have come at a worse time, and really deflated everything. It's a Browns kind of story there where, we get our psychs, we're excited about these moments, and then something falters and goes wrong. So Jameson Winston, I just wanted to touch on him for a minute. 2021 was the last time he had any sort of extended play time. I think he was in 7 games. He went 5-2. Wanted your thoughts just on him, his style, his, he's come out of Florida State. He's always been sort of a chatterbox, and anxious to see kind of where that is. We're 6 months out from the season. So I don't think personally, I'm just going to say right now, I think Deshaun Watson will get injured at some point. And I guess my other part of the question here is, what do you think about Winston? And then DTR, where no one has talked about Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Where does this all land for everybody? Let's start with you, Noah. Where do you think everything is going to I haven't heard anything about DTR.
So I'll start with DTR, and I touched on this last week when we hopped on this show, right? I think he's very much their developmental piece in that room, whether that be to get him to a position to be a backup that could be a trade asset later on.
Okay.
Or B, also in those roles that we saw him with Joe Flacco at the end of the season, where he'd come in and run, a QB sweep type of package or some sort of read option, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very much his role here, as opposed to where Jameis is going to be your true backup, right? If Deshaun gets injured, like you're predicting, Jameis will be your starting quarterback for whatever time that, takes for Deshaun to come back.
Okay. Jarrell, what do you think? But with DTR, do you agree? Is that
I mean, what I saw this year, I mean, he's definitely athletic, but I don't know if because to me, quarterback is very much about pre-snap read, understanding what the defense is doing, whether they're disguising it, whether they're going to bail out, kind of understanding what's happening before you snap the ball.
Yeah,
I didn't really see that. So hopefully, going into the second year on the NFL level, he'll develop that and be able to kind of add that to his repertoire.
Yeah.
But I definitely think if it's between him and Winston, you probably got to give the nod to Winston just on the experience piece.
So has anybody heard anything about PJ Walker? Steve, anything on PJ Walker, any of those guys that we've had in the past? No. Okay.
He might be brought in as a camp quarterback, him or
practice squad arm. Yeah.
You need 4 quarterbacks in training camp.
Right. Okay. Let me. I just want to throw a bunch of names out at.
You're not going to ask me.
Well, yeah, I'm going to ask you. Yeah, I want to know. Well, I mean.
Okay. Well, Noah brought up something last week that Andrew Berry had said, that there is a possibility that they'll carry 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Now you look at the running back they signed, Hines.
Yes.
He's also a punt returner.
I talked about him last
returner.
night. Yes.
So that would eliminate the need for a Jalen Darden and Pierre Strong.
Yeah.
2 roster spots. So I think they'll carry him as the 3rd quarterback. And like Noah says, I could see him used in various situations on the field. Key 3rd downs. You don't have Harrison Bryant to push anymore, so
my buddy.
Although they did bring Michael Dunn back, here's your offensive guard / fullback,
and Nick Harris.
Nick Harris is gone though. That hurt.
He went to Seattle.
I liked him. Yeah.
But I think they're definitely going to keep him around if he develops this year. You don't need Jameis Winston next year. He should back up next year.
I want to talk about while you're there, before I go on to this next topic. Hines, he was injured and stuff last year at some point. I don't know the magnitude of the injury, but I know he's back now.
Injury.
I guess what I wanted, like, when you look at his stat line and everything that he's done for the teams when he was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts and played then in Buffalo, he's got 2 punt returns, 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns. But the more impressive thing to me, what I thought that stood out when I was looking at his stats, was when I think of Kareem Hunt, and then I look at Hines' statistics from the pass catching abilities: 50 catches, 45 catches, 300 yards, 400 yards. He's that kind of guy, and I could see him being used a lot, especially if Nick Chubb isn't ready to go right away. Splitting time with Jerome Ford. I just like that pick. I talked about it last night on my podcast, and I think it's one of the more not talked about guys so far that I'm interested in knowing more about. I guess let me throw some names out at you and get your takes on that or any of these other guys. So the Browns have added Judy in that trade, Smith, Mo Hurst, belly rubbing guy, Hicks, the new linebacker who had his conversation with the Browns media today.
Devin Bush.
Yeah, Devin Bush, Winston, Dunn, like you said, outside tackle, Adane, I can't pronounce it, Adenj or Liji. Defensive lineman Harris, but I don't know what his first name is. And then the punter. Those are the guys that they
Shelby Harris?
Yes, Shelby Harris. There you go. I was thinking of Nick Harris for a second. The Browns lost Nick Harris. They lost.
You didn't mention the special teams ace they signed.
Well,
the
right.
corner to take Mike Ford's spot.
Yeah,
his name is what?
And he's better than Mike Ford.
Yes, he is.
Let me ask. Okay. Well, Jordan Elliott, did he end up going to San Francisco or?
Yes. 2 years,
okay.
10 mil.
And Harrison Bryant went to went to the Raiders.
Right.
Taki signed
New
with
England.
the Patriots today. You know, I was just saying on my show last night too, and I want your takes on these guys. Anybody that you want to talk about, but I find it interesting. And I was talking to Lou the other day about how, Taki and Walker left, and now Harrison Bryant. A lot of these guys are coming off their first contracts or whatever, and I don't know, they're just kind of getting older and growing up and probably just wanting kind of a new, vibe and trying something different. They've been with the Browns since they've started. Want your takes on any of these moves today? Jarrell, what have you seen this week, or guys that have come in and gone that you like?
Well, I think what they're doing, they're keeping that core of the defense, bringing back Smith, some of those other guys, and you didn't really have to retool the defense much aside from the linebacker piece. So I like that they're not making drastic changes, and really even on offense. I mean, the Judy trade was the big trade, so you move more to the 3. So I think that they're positioned to pretty much run it back. Hopefully you have a healthy Chubb. Hopefully you have a healthy Watson, and we don't have to worry about the what ifs in a wild card or a divisional round. Like you have all of your horses ready to go. And I think they've added a lot of depth on the defensive line as well to rotate, keep bodies fresh. I know Newsom has been brought up and potentially being traded. I wouldn't like to see that. I think having 3, man up corners, Schwartz can just do a man up. We lock down across the board, get open. I like that. So I think they've been solid. I'll give them a A- as far as in this offseason.
Jerry Judy's, I know, has talked to the media a little bit the last 2 days, and 25-year-old young kid. I find that a really interesting move, more so than even Elijah Moore last year for some reason. I'm more interested in seeing what Jerry Judy does rather than look at there, Elliott's popped on. Noah, not Nick. I thought you were
Nick on the brain,
I thought you were Nick Carnes for a minute, who got blocked and then unblocked by Deshaun today. Okay, Noah, what's your take on all these offensive and all these guys that the Browns are looking at right now and that they've picked up?
I think overall, instead of breaking it down player by player, because Jarrell already kind of did that with some of the defensive players, I think what we've seen out of the Browns is what at least I think most fans should have expected. They're adding pieces at, favorable contracts in the holes. They're bringing back guys that matter the most, like Zadarius Smith. Mm-hmm. I've been pretty happy with free agency. No, there hasn't been that big, sexy move that we had. I mean, Jerry Judy has been, if you want to count it like that. But, you have the Jadeveon Clowney in the past to give Miles a running mate, and then Zadarius and, bringing in Shelby, all the defensive players they brought last year. I think overall, this is exactly what I wanted to see, address some concerns. The only thing I'm really upset about is Taki walking, because I've always liked Taki, yes. But, you bring in 2 other good linebackers and you're about where you were at beforehand anyway. I give them a B+ overall, just because it hasn't been anything like crazy, but no complaints.
Steve, thoughts? I know you've been tracking this really closely, and
probably the biggest free agent signing was re-signing Zadarius Smith. Mm-hmm. I'm completely happy with that. Mm-hmm. And getting Quentin Jefferson today, he's not a slouch. Something like a 14% win rate on pressure, and you want anybody above 10%. And he brings it. So, he's not going to start a lot. I mean, Tomlinson is going to be your 70% snaps. He'll probably take up 30. Then they'll rotate other guys. Mm-hmm. I like what they did on special teams. Now, special teams was good to average last year. Mm-hmm. I think it could be a ton better this year. Tony Brown, the guy they signed away from Indianapolis.
Yeah.
He is very good. The linebackers, Devin Bush and Hicks. Hicks. They have lower missed tackle percentages than Taki and Walker. I think Devin Bush is at like 5.7%. And then you got Tony Fields, and then you've got Hicks, who's at about 8 or 9. And then Taki was, his miss was like 15, and Walker was up there in the double digits as well. So I think they've improved in a linebacker. They definitely got a little faster, which is something I really appreciate. I mean, I like Taki and I like Anthony Walker, but come on, you know, that kind of money, and they got quicker. I agree with Jarrell. I give him an A-. I really would.
The Devin Bush pickup today. Interesting guy.
He is a Andrew Berry special. He had a RAS at the combine, a relative athletic score of 9.33. He's like 25, 26 years old, and he's a former first-round draft pick.
Right.
Find someone to love you like Andrew Berry likes former first.
I think he was pick number 10 in the first round of the 2019 draft. Here's the thing: he came out really and did some great things that first year. Tailed off. I don't know exactly his whole backstory. Kind of got it back going this past year. I think he was credited with 83 tackles.
He was Seattle.
Yeah, he was in Seattle. Before he went to Seattle, he had a pretty decent year with Pittsburgh still the year before last. Went to Seattle. Looked like he started a few games. I don't know the whole story. But, you know, he's a Michigan kid. You know, Browns fans, I mean, or this fan here talking, I'm okay with that team up north sometimes, but I don't know. Sometimes I just get a bad taste in my mouth. And then when they start circulating videos of him trying to scrape out the logo at Michigan State and stuff, crap like that, they're just so immature, stupid stuff like that.
College,
but
you never did anything immature in college.
No, I actually didn't, Steve. I was.
Oh, give me a break! Oh my God!
Come on, Steve. Now I'm kidding. No, look. I grew up in Worcester, man. Nothing happens in Worcester other than the College of Worcester, and Noah can tell you all about that. I'm sure. I'd like to know what Noah knows about Worcester and anyway.
Stories for days. Trust me.
Yeah. All right. So Andrew Berry. The thing is, we're talking about all of this right now, and it's 6 months out. By the way, Elliot has joined us. Good evening, Elliot. How are you? We have not talked to you in a while. How's your health? Are you feeling better?
Yeah, I'm feeling okay. I had been a little bit under the weather for a while and hadn't been putting my show together. Sorry, fans, but I'm back now.
Yes.
Back to normal. And I had a lot to comment on about the Browns. I have a backlog of criticisms and kudos to give out, observations. Maybe one of the biggest things that I thought was significant was Jordan Elliott.
Yes.
Most people believe, if you believe Pro Football Focus, he was so bad, one of the most terrible linemen in the NFL, ranked about 120th in the NFL. And remember, there's 64 at most defensive linemen in the NFL.
Yeah.
If you assume there's 2 per team, right, you can have 64 starters. Some only have 1 interior lineman. So, let's say there's 60 defensive starters. So 120th would be the end of second string, and that's about where Jordan Elliott ranks, 120th. Yeah. So he'd be like the number 4 linebacker in the linebacker room. So terrible. And then San Francisco gives him a $10 million contract for 2 years, making him about the 30th highest paid defensive lineman in the NFL.
No sense.
So who do we believe? And also let's remember that Jim Schwartz played him. He had the most snaps of any defensive lineman, I think. among the Browns.
Yeah.
And so, he was really a starter for the Browns.
Elliot,
and so who do we believe? Yeah. Do we believe Pro Football Focus? Or do we believe the San Francisco 49ers and Jim Schwartz? Yeah. I believe Jim Schwartz in San Francisco, and that Jordan Elliott is probably a pretty valuable player.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a loss.
I guess, and then the other part of this, Elliot, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, right before you came on, like people like Harrison Bryant and some of these younger guys, the Taki leaving. To me, it's more, I don't know, the picture I see is these young kids, they come out of college, they play their first deal, and I think they've been with the team through this time period where they've gotten better. They went through Baker Mayfield and now Deshaun. And I just simply think some of these guys, like Jordan Elliott, who's now in San Francisco with $10 million, I think it's just like this idea, like, okay, this is an attractive offer. He's going to take it. I love Jordan Elliott. I think it's, you guys, you talked about him a lot. I know our old colleague, Joel Cade, talked about Jordan Elliott a lot and what he did for this team. And I thought he really came on, especially the last 2 seasons. So I think it is a loss. There will be other guys. And I think, Steve, you mentioned who's the guy they brought in today or yesterday?
Quentin Jefferson, better than Jordan Elliott.
100%. I'm a huge fan of his game. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's much better.
But he's older, right?
30.
He's got 30. So he's more experienced. Jordan Elliott's probably 25, 24. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I just thought Jordan Elliott didn't get a lot of, I just think that he was better than most people want to give him credit for. I think he did more. I know that he didn't do a lot early on in his career, but I don't know. I mean, he's got a $10 million deal with the San Francisco 49ers, who are just in the Super Bowl. So, I mean,
I don't equate free agent contracts to how well a player does. I mean, day one is big contracts. Day 2 is fool's gold when teams panic. And then day 3 and on is your bargain hunting. So,
who was the wide receiver that the Jaguars signed yesterday or the day before? That was a crazy deal. Who's the Ridley? Calvin Ridley signed some.
No, that's the Titans.
Oh, the Titans.
Titans gave him a 4-year, $92 million contract and wouldn't give A.J. Brown a 4-year, $100 million contract.
Right.
Calvin Ridley is the same age as Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
It was a panic owner-driven move by the Tennessee Titans. They are still going to finish behind the Houston Texans, who had an outstanding free agency so far.
Yes.
Jacksonville has gotten better, and I would even say Indy has gotten better. So
and Detroit, wow. Detroit's got in a couple.
I'm just talking about the AFC South.
Yeah.
I mean, Tony Pollard, good running back. Derrick Henry, goodbye. He's washed. He is going to be like OBJ and be a June 1st cut next year by the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson will have more rushing yards than Derrick Henry this year. So, I've seen enough Titans games. He has just gone.
Yeah.
They used him way too much early in his career.
Hey, let's take a quick break here. We're the Fanatical Elfz Show. We're part of the Fans First Sports Network. We'll be right back after this brief commercial. And we're back. Hope you enjoyed those wonderful, tantalizing commercials. These guys here that you're watching, we all produce content every week here on the Fanatical Elfz, and we love the fact that you join us, follow us, support us. Go Browns. You can download us on Apple, Spotify. That's where we make the big bucks. You're watching us live on the X, on YouTube, on Facebook. We appreciate your love and support. Jarrell's got his dog
food tea radio.
Radio. Yeah, that's right.
Dog food radio.
And it's awesome. Jarrell's got a lot of just awesome takes, and he analyzes things and breaks things down. Noah up there, he and his buddy Matt have their East Bank sports show, doing some great stuff up there. Steve Gill up there with the Dog Pound South shows, bringing you that, and his analytics and breakdowns of money is awesome. And then we've got Elliot with his Oracle Speaks shows. He's bring that every week. In addition to that, we've got the Johnny Cleveland show. Lou Marconi is doing his Burning River Browns talk, a good 5-10 minute little conversation in the morning. Tune into those. He's also writing a daily article for Fans First. Many of us here write for Fans First as well. So check out our articles. We cover the Browns. We cover the Cavs. We cover the Indians. I mean, the Guardians. By the way, I got to tell you guys. So I have this old school Cleveland Indians jacket I've had for like 15, 20 years probably, but it's got the old 1970 label on it, 1974 tag on it. And I get so many compliments when I wear that pullover more than anything else. People always see, oh man, that's really cool. So I'm going, well, anyway, we'll talk about other stuff later, but let's, we're talking about free agency. I did want to bring up one little topic and then we can open it up to whatever else you guys want to finish the show with. But I know Steve's really excited to talk about this. So earlier in the day, and I'm a social media freak, like many of you who are watching this show, Deshaun Watson is not on his phone. He has a Twitter account or an X account. He's not there like you or I looking at his phone all the time. He's got people running the show for him. But there were a few people who follow the Browns and follow Deshaun Watson and are writers. People like, I think, Nick Carnes and this Ed from Columbus that some of us follow. It's kind of like Paul Brown of the across the pond. Anyhow, these guys follow Deshaun Watson, and a few of them got blocked earlier today by Deshaun Watson. And so they went on a tizzy about how could they and stuff. Well, since then, I think, Steve, you reported to us before the show started that now Nick Carnes is back in the good graces.
I think they're all back.
Okay. So, unlike you who are getting blocked by Mary Kay,
she deserved it. That crap she wrote that year was nothing but clickbait, and I called her a clickbait queen. It's not my fault. She's sensitive about it.
I guess the whole thing here that I want to bring up, and I know it doesn't have to do with the game of football and on the field, but there are a lot of, this divide ever since Deshaun has been brought onto this team, is that, there's a fan group that just hates him. And then there's a group that loves him. When you see these guys getting blocked and then they're on social media and then everyone's talking about it in the comments, I know it doesn't mean anything to Deshaun Watson, but I just find it interesting because I feel like, as a Browns fan, as somebody who goes to the Browns games and somebody who talks about the Browns like you guys, I do feel it has some bearing and some sort of effect on us, the fans. And I think that can carry over in how we discuss and feel about these players. They're our stars, are the people that we love to support, but I don't think I don't think Deshaun Watson won a lot of fans today initially. And not that it matters to Deshaun, I'm sure, but I just find it as an interesting topic because I think it socially does mean something to people. I just think it adds to this whole thing about Deshaun kind of being this villain, that some people want him to be this villain. And I think it adds to that for those people that really are looking for that. But what do you all think? I'll just open the floor. Anybody want to talk about it? If you don't want to talk about it, we can go on to the next topic.
Yeah, real quick, I'm just going to add that didn't Nick Carnes, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't he blocked over like a Joe Flacco comment? Did anybody see that? Or
yes.
Is that me?
Yes. Yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
So to me, right, I don't think in the grand scheme of things it really matters. And if we were, week 5 talking about this would be a completely different ball game because it wouldn't be a topic, I feel like. That being said, I think it does add to the villain arc, the villain story, and I don't think it's a good look in general to just be blocking fans. Regardless if that's his management, regardless if it's Deshaun Watson, Deshaun Watson's girlfriend, Deshaun Watson's dog, Deshaun Watson's parents, whoever. In general, I still don't think it's a great look. And I've always been on the side of you trade for Deshaun Watson because he is a franchise quarterback. So I don't want to call myself a Watson defender, but on the football side of Deshaun Watson, I tend to side with it. I just don't think it's a good look in general. But at the end of the day, what does it really matter come even, mini camp?
Yeah. Steve?
As I've said many times, I take the line from the Monty Python movie, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, when he's talking about Camelot. Let's leave. It's such a silly place. That is Brown's Twitter. It really is. Look, I'm not a Watson warrior or whatever. I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. I root for the Cleveland Browns. I root for their players. Can I criticize them? Sure. Am I going to criticize them? You're damn right. If you ain't playing well, I'm going to come on my podcast and say, you weren't playing well. I mean, Tommy Togiai comes to mind. Right now, it's is Hudson, the backup right tackle. I think he should go. I'm tired of him. But, this whole social media thing where you think that because you can communicate with a star, an athlete or something like that, is that they owe you something. It doesn't work that way. When I was on Sports Talk Radio, and back then, this is over 20 years ago, they didn't have all of the social media stuff. You relied on callers. That was your show. Your 2-hour show was relying on people to call. And you can they can comment, you can comment, you can do analysis, that kind of stuff. But there are people out there back then who thought that because they called in every day, they were actually either part of the show or a guest on the show. That's not how it worked. And that's how I think social media works. You take it too seriously. I mean, come on. I don't really care if Mary Kay blocked me. Who cares?
I care for you. Mary Kay's she's just completely wrong. Come on, man.
And
she's short, she thinks she knows it all. Come on now.
And if she's not smart enough to figure out I can create another account and follow her there, that's her fault. So let's face facts. When Deshaun came in, Baker went out. The Baker Bros got all upset. They got all their panties in a wad. And they've still got their panties in a wad. Then you've got the fans that didn't like what happened in the non-football situation with Deshaun Watson. Either some of them left and did not follow the Browns. Great.
Yeah.
You're entitled to that. I respect that completely.
Yeah.
But to hang around and just tear him down on a continual basis, no. Go root for Buffalo. Go root for Indy now that Joe Flacco's there. Just how about this? How about we could just have the Browns, and then you've got the people who got all that inept front office burned into their brains, previous front offices. This is not an inept front office. Before this Winston move, everybody was praising Andrew Berry for all the great moves he made last year to keep this team afloat.
Yes.
And now after signing Jameis Winston instead of Joe Flacco, he stinks. Oh, come on. It's body of work, people. Don't stare at the bark on one tree. Look at the entire forest.
Jarrell, takes on all of this.
To me, social media is kind of funny because even the major, outlets, the ESPNs and the FS1s, they report on what people tweet, and that's almost not even journalism to me. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Because,
it's changed a lot, hasn't it, Jarrell?
it's like, is it that slow of a news day that you got to jump to the internet to try to drum up some sort of clicks or some sort of controversy? But you said something about the Baker Bros, and I'm not trying to disparage the Baker Bros. I'm not trying to disparage Baker Mayfield. I just want to put something out there, and maybe it can be some discourse. If I remember correctly, when the Browns played the Chiefs, I think that was in the divisional round, and the defense knocked out Patrick Mahomes.
Yes, they did.
Knocked him out the game, right? Chad Henne was the quarterback for the Chiefs for the second half, if I remember correctly.
Yes, you are correct.
So what I think I find funny about it is that Baker Mayfield was productive at times. He was a little up and down. He was productive at times, right? Yeah. But I wonder if it was any other quarterback, Deshaun Watson or whoever, Joe Flacco, whoever, if you can't beat Chad Henne in a divisional playoff game to go to the next round, it's like I wonder how the fans react to that. And it's just funny to me that Baker Mayfield, he kind of got a pass for that. Yeah. Because nobody brings that up. And I think that was the thing that management kind of looked at and was like, maybe, because you just saw Joe Burrow, I think, either the year before or the year after.
Well, you think about that game specifically in that game in Henne, they gave away, and if I go back and look at this in time, but he threw an interception deep that we picked off in the Chiefs end zone, and we had the damn ball, right?
Yep.
And did we do anything with it on that next possession? Did you say we got a field goal out of it? No, we didn't.
I thought it was a field goal. Or did we not score?
I don't think we scored. Here we had an opportunity to score late in that game, and I don't think Baker did anything. And that was another. I mean, it's hard to win in Kansas City. Let me tell you, I lived in Kansas City or Wichita. I mean, the Chiefs, that is a ginormously hard place to win a game. But yeah, that was just opportunities that were lost. But you're right, Jarrell. I mean, I'm happy for Baker now. I think Baker, I mean, you think about it, these guys are younger when he played with the Browns, and now he's been with 3 other teams since he's left Cleveland. He's been probably humbled a little bit. Humbled a little bit, I would say. I mean, when he went to Carolina, being the backup, and then, he got a nice shining moment when he was with the Rams for a minute. I'm happy for him, though. Hopefully, I miss his commercials. So
that's the best you can say, John. That's a low bar, brother.
Right.
No, but then you hear people like and Elliot, I'd like your take on this. Greg Williams, who you're a fan of, this week is talking about on some radio program that he believes that he could have taken the Browns and Baker Mayfield and won a Super Bowl if they had left him as the coach. I always like when these coaches who, I mean, hell, I'm a great coach. Damn it, I've been coaching for years. I could take that team. I could take the Cavs. I could beat JB Bickerstaff. He knows nothing, man. No one knows how much I hate JB. Shit.
Dean Wade more minutes always.
Yeah, well, damn it. Look what he did the other day. 23 points. Beat the Celtics by himself. Okay. By the way, I don't want to. Well, he's been out, but he's coming back. I think. I don't know if you know anything on the inside.
Okay. I think he's back the next couple games.
I was talking to his coach. I digress here, but his high school coach, and it was top secret why he was gone. But I think he's back now. So, Elliot, I know you like Greg Williams, and he was talking about Baker and taking him to the Super Bowl. How do you feel about that?
Well, yeah, I don't think it's totally crazy. I think Greg Williams, the head coach, is a different coach than Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator. I do think that Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator, became a little bit one-dimensional late in his career when he blitzed on every play, like the Ryan brothers. I think that style of defense, the rest of the NFL caught on how to counter that. But I'll say this: I think that Baker respected or even feared Greg Williams to an extent, and I think that Baker was not afraid of Kevin Stefanski, and that was his problem ultimately.
Oh, that's an interesting take.
I've learned to reinterpret that Green Bay game at the end of Baker's tenure.
Yes, that Christmas game.
You'll remember that game, Nick Chubb averaged like 8 yards per carry and didn't get any carries because Baker was throwing on every play. And we all thought, oh my God, Stefanski is making the most stupid play calls. He's keeping on calling passes all the time. And Green Bay had a terrible run defense at that point, and they could not stop Nick Chubb. They just could not stop him.
Yes.
And we thought, boy, Stefanski, what stupid play calls. And I started to realize that's actually when Baker sealed his fate. It was not Stefanski calling those plays. That was Baker audibilizing out of the run call and changing it to a pass, and then him throwing interceptions. I think he threw 4 interceptions that game. Those were supposed to be Nick Chubb runs, and he took it upon himself to throw the ball because he was more confident in himself than in Nick Chubb. That's why Baker had to go. It wasn't because he didn't have ability and all this other kind of nonsense. It was because he wouldn't listen to the coach, and he overstepped his authority. That's why he had to go.
Well, the timeline on everything too. I mean, they didn't re-up and sign him when they could have before he started that last season. So there's a lot of things pointing to the direction that it went, that we were going to lose Baker.
It's because he didn't respect the coach. You know,
he
overused his authority to audibilize.
Sure.
And he made stupid plays.
He was so much into his commercials at Progressive that it was just, he was making turkeys at Thanksgiving.
That's what I don't care about commercials. I only care about what he did on the field. And
it's all one and the same, Elliot. Come on.
He had the best stretch of his career under Greg Williams. If you look up his stats, his rookie year under Greg Williams was when he played his best football because he listened to Greg Williams. I think he was scared to cross Greg Williams. He was not afraid to cross Kevin Stefanski because he felt like he outranked Kevin Stefanski. I'm goddamn Baker Mayfield. Oh, pardon my French. I'm gosh darn Baker Mayfield. And I'm going to call my plays because I know more than you, coach. And go ahead and try to pull me and put in Case Keenum because you can't do that because I'm the one that's calling the shots. That's how Baker Mayfield felt. I'm going to play with, my torn up left shoulder. I'm going to use my shoulder harness because I'm a tough guy and I'm going to stay in a game even though I can't throw worth a darn. And you're not going to pull me because I'm Baker Mayfield. That's the way that it went down. Kevin Stefanski said, I got to have a new quarterback or I'm out of here. And so that's what led to the decision that they needed Deshaun Watson.
Okay, let's spin it forward now. Let's spin it forward to now, because one of the things I overheard in the conversation just recently on another podcast up here in Cleveland, they were talking about play calling with Stefanski and then how what's his face went to New England. And that now it's being some people are reporting that Stefanski, is he making the decisions or is the team still making decisions for him? How much?
No, you're not going to have the offensive coordinator outrank the head coach. That's a fan's fantasy. You can't have the sergeant.
No, I'm not talking about that.
That's not going to happen.
No, I'm not getting.
If Kevin wants to make the calls, that's his decision. You can't have an upside down organizational chart.
I'm not talking about that.
Power flows the wrong way. You can't do that.
No, I know, Elliot. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about now. There's speculation. They're going into the next season. The questions are around how much is Stefanski going to have a say?
Kevin will make that decision based on how he wants to do it. It's not going to be made.
Well, but Elliot, what I'm getting at though is you're assuming that he's making the decisions, and what I'm saying is there are people out there up in Cleveland on sports media talking about the fact is much.
I don't care what the media says. That's not how the football team runs.
Oh boy, speculation.
Stefanski will be gone.
Somebody again got their panties in a wad about Kevin Stefanski.
That's the third time you said panties in a wad there, Steve. Tonight.
Paul Podesta is making and calling plays, and come on, give me.
You're not going to know. I think I want to know what the source is.
Noah,
I want to know what the source is on the what say does Kevin Stefanski have and this, that, and the what like. There's a front office in play. There's an ownership group in play. Yeah, they all have a say involved with this. I think if you look at what was going on with the offense and you look at what was going on with this team, it was clear that there was some changes that needed to be made, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our offense was still stuck in the past, and you bring in a guy, for better or for worse, who helped players in Buffalo move forward into different offenses and has a style that is more modern NFL, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It just makes sense in terms of the team. Like, yeah, Kevin Stefanski can have all the respect in the world for Alex Van Pelt.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Van Pelt can go get an OC coordinator job. That doesn't mean it's still the best fit for us. New England is not good at football right now. We are.
Yeah. No, I think the question that was brought up is how much, again, it was posed by another group that they just said, there's people out there. Who's the guy? Albert Breer? Is that Breer? What's the guy's name?
Oh, don't believe a word.
I know, Steve. I know who the guy is, and I know he gets paid off by the guys up in New England and whatever. But he's the one who was trying to I think he's the guy who was throwing out this speculation that Stefanski's still like this puppet and everything, and that he really doesn't have a say in a lot of these things. And that was after Van Pelt signed with New England, kind of like he's best buds with Van Pelt or whatever. So
we can only pray that ownership is not trying to force Stefanski to yield the play calling duties to somebody else. If ownership is making the play calling, then it'll be a disaster. I don't believe that's the case. I believe that Dee Haslam resolved that issue when she was made the CEO of Haslam Sports. She defined everybody's role and says, no, ownership is not going to make the play calling decisions. They are not going to promote the offensive coordinator over the head coach like they did in 2018. You'll recall when they had what was the guy from Pittsburgh was the offensive coordinator, and he had more authority than the head coach.
Todd Haley.
Todd Haley.
Yeah, Todd Haley. That was ridiculous. You can't have the offensive coordinator have more authority than the head coach. That's just ridiculous. If the head coach wants to have, to delegate play calling to the offensive coordinator, fine. But you cannot force him to do that by some edict from ownership. That's stupid. You either fire him if you don't have confidence in his ability to call plays, and then promote that head coach or promote that offensive coordinator to become the new head coach.
Yeah.
Or, you either have confidence in the head coach or you don't.
Yeah. All right. We're coming up on an hour. So let's do final takes here on this evening. We've had a lot of good conversation as we hit week 1 of the free agency frenzy. Jarrell, let's start with you. Final takes this evening. I know you've got a show coming up you're going to work on later this week, so anxious to hear that. Final takes on anything Browns related this week, conversations, free agencies.
I think it's pretty obvious for me. This is the year where the Browns are going to determine whether they're going to be a consistent organization, kind of like Pittsburgh and Baltimore has been, or if they lose this kind of lightning in a bottle thing that they have where they're competitive, actually, dominant in certain areas, and they kind of fall by the wayside. I think they're doing it right with paying a lot of attention to the defense, because again, in the AFC North is going to be a bloodbath this season. And you're going to get out of that bloodbath with defense, physical football, not being a finesse team. So I think the moves that they've made in free agency, pretty much keeping the core, bringing in a couple of new pieces, giving Watson a new weapon, a new shiny toy. I think they're in prime position to do battle in the hardest division in football, bar none. So it's going to be a very interesting.
We're going to be so hyped in 6 months.
Yeah.
So, Noah, final takes tonight.
So last episode of my show, the East Bank Sports Show, we did a mock draft, me and Matt. I'm throwing my mock draft out the window with the signings. I think they are going high, and I'm trying to be a little hot takey with this. I think they're going high. I think you'll see a second or third round running back come to the Browns if someone they like falls.
Elliot, the Oracle speaks. By the way, at East Bank Show, you're going to have another one Sunday or Monday.
Yep,
right?
always Sunday or Monday.
Yep, awesome. Elliot, Oracle speaks. Final
well,
takes tonight.
I would say this, that I think that Jameis Winston is a much better choice to be the backup quarterback than Joe Flacco. I have no problems with that move whatsoever. I do think that they need to have defense more than they need to have flashy position players on offense. So I want to see them get back to work with guys in the trenches on defense. I think that they have had more losses on defense than additions. And I think that that's a very serious problem. And I expect them to address that area in the draft rather than continue to get a bunch of speedster position players.
Yeah. Steve.
I just want to build on what Jarrell said. Like I mentioned earlier, every time Browns have a magical season, they falter the next season, except for, of course, when Paul Brown and Blanton Collier were head coach, and when they had that moment between 1985 and 1989 when they had Bernie Kosar, a good front office with Ernie Accorsi, and Schottenheimer as their head coach. But that's what I want to see. I want to see a consistent second season. Like Jarrell said, that's what builds winning franchises.
Right.
Like the Steelers, like Baltimore.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to see. Number two, I still think Andrew Berry has a trade in him. I am just thinking he's got a trade in him.
And for
one
what?
more big trade.
Defense?
I'm going with Elliott, defense. Yeah. I think he does. He surprises me every year.
Is Greg Newsome in that trade?
If I'm hearing they have to be overwhelmed to trade Greg Newsome.
Okay.
So if somebody comes along and overwhelms them, sure, every front office would do that.
Yeah.
I think an offensive lineman has got to go.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. So far, you hadn't heard anything about restructures. Like I said, one show, I'm agreeing with Elliot. Let's skip a year on Deshaun and let everything kind of settle down a little bit before we restructure him again. But I just have a feeling he's got like another big trade, and I'm thinking defense.
Well, I think that this year's, and despite what some of you think or have said, Sam talked about it, I think, last week on our show.
Yes, he did.
Our podcast. But this is, well, in relationship to Deshaun, he kind of suggested that, Deshaun really needs to play well this year, and that we're assuming that he's with us. I know that's guaranteed money and everything, but if he lays another egg, or here's the thing, I talk about this, and this is my final thought, but I know you're going to disagree here. What I would say to my show the other night was that I know what Deshaun did. We're getting lightning here at the house is. I might lose electricity here, so we got storms.
Hurry up.
Yeah, my take on it is that Deshaun went 4-1 or 5-1 and did well when he was on the field. I want the guy to stay on.
There he goes.
And boom, he got hit by lightning. Okay, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. Again, follow us, listen to us, watch us. We appreciate it. We're just Browns fans like you. So if John ever comes back, which I don't think he's going to, everybody, and we appreciate all of you watching us now. My God, over 1,000 people. Thank you. We appreciate it. So thanking John, Noah, Elliot, and Jarrell. Thanks again. And everyone, go Browns.
Go Browns, baby.
And I don't have